So ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you in true Tobago style is the Tobago Performing Arts Company with a traditional speech band. Let's welcome them.
Before you run with the headline, you check your sources to make sure that your news proper, cause you can't go on Facebook and Instagram and put up the victim picture. Worse yet, you can't bend the truth and say that the man guilty. You as judge, executioner, jury, you had to be crazy. You had to function with some more integrity. As custodians of news and media, it is your sacred duty and honor. The words you write and say have plenty influence. And if you're irresponsible, it could lead to heavy, brutal consequence. So now come here with all your bias. Just report good and honest. Focus on the issues and forget all the bacchanal and commerce. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh, ha. Oh, ha.
Oh, hi. Media say walk with your umbrella because tomorrow is heavy rain and heavy thunder. Media say it costs too much for buy flour, so we have to grind our oats and make bread with cassava. Take off all your mask now. COVID gone away. You out and you out. Me never say media say. This is the power that media have over our we to influence and bring change to our society. In a few seconds, it could grab our attention. But if we not good, it could cause confusion. This media work, this ain't for any and everybody. You need dedication, talent, and literary integrity. So all you media creators who sit down in a Magdalena tonight, I look clap, feel good, because I look get it right. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh ha! Oh ha! Oh ha!
We want to thank all you for taking the call seriously and understanding that media create a general assembly, because this is the place where you can expand your network and broaden the Caribbean community. But here now, nobody time for we to go. We want you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Take full advantage of being in Tobago and bask in every moment of it. Cause remember, this are the greatest little island pan the planet. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank the members of the Tobago Performing Arts Company with another hearty round of applause. At this time, Dr. Claire Grant, President of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, will bring greetings. Dr. Grant became CBU's Vice President in 2021. She is currently in charge of all the electronic media services of the RJR Gleaner Group based in Jamaica. Her career in media includes working as a journalist with the Gleaner Company until she became editor of The Star. She joined Television Jamaica in 2006 as marketing and sales manager and became general manager in 2012. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Claire Grant will address us now virtually.
Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine, Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, Councillor Tassia Beres, other specially invited guests from the Legislature, Executive, and Judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago, colleague media executives of the CBU member organizations, broadcast, print, and digital journalists, audience members here in person and joining us electronically. A warm good evening and welcome to this first in-person assembly of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union since 2019. Let me begin partnership through the Tobago House of Assembly under the leadership of Chief Secretary Augustine, collaborating efficiently and effectively with the CBU local organizing committee comprised of CBU member organizations based in the understand why the beauty and rich culture of Tobago made this particularly grateful to Trinidad and Tobago in taking on the hosting duties for the Assembly this year as we all navigate this to make this address is a stark example of how businesses and other organizations have learned to seamlessly adapt to ever-morphing circumstances, keeping the ball rolling and getting the job done. And this media sector, of which all the CBU member organizations are proud, has had a particularly tough time. We have been very much on the front line, providing certainty and reassurance, even as our team members succumbed to this dreaded disease. I pause here to pay tribute to our fallen comrades in the Caribbean media profession. In addition to the very real personal effect, we have also had to deal with industry challenges. We've been expected outside of the traditional information and entertainment, but also to assist the education sector. I am particularly proud of how regional media houses developed specialized programming, print, and digital content to assist remote learning during the past 2 years. And we have been called on to do this even as the usually reliable sources of revenue for our operations have had to contract their businesses. While we are seeing signs of recovery, we are all aware that the commercial activity is hamstrung because of an inability to get sufficient goods to meet customer demand. The knock-on effect on media advertising revenue has been significant, with no certain end in sight. And then there has been a wider social phenomenon, exacerbated by the pandemic, which also has deep implications for the Caribbean media sector. I hark back to the 52nd Assembly, conducted virtually, when CBU issued a statement highlighting the impact of misinformation and disinformation. We all are aware of the truth, and not the conspiracy, that the pandemic was paralleled by an infodemic. As public service and professional media organizations, we have taken seriously our responsibility to help our societies beat back the sickening tide of patently false information, sometimes maliciously spread, which has made the job of Caribbean countries and territories recovering from the pandemic so much more difficult. Hence, the media and information literacy theme of our conference tomorrow. We are truly grateful to UNESCO for its ongoing kind support, not only to the conference, but the larger project on this topic, which was launched in May for World Press Freedom Day. Say that despite the regional and global challenges, our media has continued to demonstrate great resilience, and that has redounded to the benefit of our society. While accommodations have had to be made since 2020, we have managed to retain the majority of the union's membership. And since the beginning of 2022, we have received expressions of interest in membership from no fewer than 6 organizations in the English and Dutch Caribbean. I had truly wished to be there in person today to welcome our 2 latest returning members, ABS of Antigua and Barbuda and TNT right here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you take a look at the commemorative booklets we have distributed, both in print and electronically, you will see a number of benefits of CBU membership. One that is in great demand is capacity building. The CBU is a strong advocate for the sector and those who work for its member organizations, being seen for the professionals that they are. We are not just pipes through which messages are distributed. If we weren't aware of it before, the last 2 years have clearly shown us that the days of media being mere mouthpieces for other powerful interests has ended. The communication space is a co-created one, and the media sector has a critical role to play outside of being the instruments for others. The place of the indigenous media as a critical sector for society is one of the points for discussion with the CARICOM Secretary General. And while she joins us remotely tomorrow, we are truly grateful for her strong interest in engaging the media. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Carla Barnett for being the first sitting Secretary General of CARICOM to participate in a CBU General Assembly. Thank you, Dr. Barnett. As we facilitate our sector being prepared to deal with the current challenges, CBU has continued to emphasize training in critical areas, some of which were not even contemplated by earlier generations. Example, climate change and gender, the CSME, and free movement of labor. And a major emphasis for the past 2 years has been disaster risk reduction. In the last area, we are particularly grateful for the support of the UNDRR, including grant funding to support co-productions. And, colleagues, to underscore the point that the CBU member organizations represent a sector which largely consists of trained experts operating at a highly skilled level, I am pleased to announce a new partnership with the University of the West Indies Mona campus, the home of the Caribbean School of Media and Communications. Our regional institution, CARIMAC, will be providing access to selected online courses in the Masters in Media Management program to personnel from CBU member organizations. In return, the participating media houses will be expanding the visibility of academic programs of the University of the West Indies, which, as we all know, is rated among the best in the world. Pending the completion of the legal arrangements, the first 2 courses will be offered from next month. We expect CBU members to eagerly accept the opportunity to receive instruction in Structure and Operations of Media, taught by Dr. Alpha Obika, and Media Business Strategy, taught by yours truly. We see this collaboration as further proof that our own media institutions partnering creatively can offer this region the best media expertise and content that contributes to the advancement of the Caribbean society. And this is the note on which I wish to wrap up. The CBU continues to see itself as a facilitator of not only its individual members, but of the Caribbean media sector as a whole. And we deeply appreciate you, our partners, our stakeholders, well-wishers, and colleagues for joining us in this, our 53rd General Assembly. We commit to continue to fulfill our mandate to the best of our ability. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grant, for your greetings, and we're always ready to warmly welcome you in person in Tobago. So as we continue on with our program, coming to bring the welcome address is the Chief Secretary of Tobago, Honorable Fali Chavez Augustine. Just to tell you a bit about the Chief Secretary, Honorable Augustine was raised in the eastern community of Speyside. He credits his values and achievements to this community, which continues to shape his persona. Having received his formative schooling at the Speyside Anglican School, he later went on to pursue his secondary education at Bishop's High. In 2005, he matriculated at the University of the West Indies, Mona, to read for a Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics. At university, his passion for politics ignited, leading him to pursue a double major in international relations. After his tertiary studies, Chief Secretary Augustine returned to Tobago. He worked as a communications officer at the then Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, before starting his career as an educator at the Speyside High School. The political arena presented another way for him to be of service to his community. In 2017, he was elected as the area representative for the electoral district of Palatuvere, Lansformie, and Speyside, and in 2021, he was re-elected. He now leads a vibrant and youthful administration that is on a mission to make Tobago the greatest little island in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to invite to the podium our Chief Secretary, Honorable Farley Augustine.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Ms. Chambers. And I guess that Google does have some correct information. Let me welcome Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, other government ministers and parliamentarians who are present, Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ms. Abby Taylor, Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries in the THA. I welcome virtually President of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, Dr. Claire Grant, as well as present with us today, Vice President of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, Mr. Richard Purcell, and other board members, Secretary General of the CBU, Ms. Sonia Gill, delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. All right. You know, there are two dominant emotions this evening. And as I stand here with you, I feel both in an almost visceral way, having this opportunity to be in your presence this evening for your 53rd Annual General Assembly. And for me, those emotions are excitement and gratitude. Excitement because we are able to witness our Caribbean media practitioners from all ends of the region converge on Tobago, whether physically or virtually. And this for us is a joyous feeling. It's always good in Trinidad and Tobago to welcome our colleagues from around the region because we see you as our brothers and sisters. So we are happy, we are elated to have you join us here, whether physically or virtually. But we also feel a deep sense of gratitude that Tobago gets this opportunity to serve as host to the CBU as you come out of 2 years away from physical AGA, and this being your 53rd year, we are happy that you can celebrate with us here on this island of Tobago. Within the last few decades, media and communications industry has expanded, it has evolved significantly. And the way we saw media when I was growing up is certainly not the way media is today. While I was growing up on this island, we were accustomed to 1, maybe 2 channels if you are lucky. And given that I am from rural Tobago, it is definitely 1 channel. We were accustomed to someone going on the rooftop and moving the antenna, and someone inside shouting, right there, hold it right there. And then you are able to experience your favorite television shows on what was then TTT, the only channel we got. In my grandparents' home, that was a Zenith television. I don't know that they still make Zenith televisions. But we have evolved, media has evolved since then. We're now living in an age where information is at our fingertips. We live in an age where there are people who are not trained broadcasters who can get the news to us much faster than the traditional media practitioners. Your competition is every youth who has a Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram account and a smartphone. We live in a world where the amount of channels we now look at can be overwhelming, and your competition is not just other local broadcasting stations, but your competition extends around the world. And with the CNNization of the world, you now face a challenge with how you are going to remain relevant in a world that is fast changing. And so as you meet this week, it's an opportunity to revisit the foundation of press freedom. Because what press freedom meant a decade ago, it certainly means something else today. You have an opportunity to also revisit the issue of ethics, the issue of how we manage information, and how you tell your stories. Because if you don't tell your story well, we can indeed result in chaos. And you have heard from the opening salvo with the speech ban, the concerns being raised about misinformation and disinformation are very prevalent in the world we live in. But more than that, you are now challenged as Caribbean broadcast journalists to tell the Caribbean story. How do you tell our story? And while we see challenges, we also see opportunities. Because there once was a time when our voices were muffled, when our voices in the Caribbean region was not as loud as others, when the world will only rely on you to tell a story when something catastrophic happened in the region. But in a world of TikTok and 60 characters, you have an opportunity to tell our story the way we want our stories to be told. You have an opportunity to tell our stories in the most authentic manner and to broadcast across the length and breadth of this world truly who we are. What's the truth behind being a Caribbean man and a Caribbean woman? Our daily experiences, our lived experiences. And so don't just see the challenges as you meet, but see it as opportunities. Today, in today's world, we see young people on the continent of Africa having their music, having their dances being streamed in the most viral way. Something thought impossible before. We see cultures from developing states such as ours rising to the occasion and being picked up by metropolitan cultures. Again, this presents an opportunity by which our authentic self can really shine the world over. So as you meet, as you bounce brains together over the next couple days, take some time to think about how can we manipulate, how can we advance a Caribbean agenda given the global media constructs that we now have. How can we create respect for our people? How can we create endearment for our people? How can we create a world where people truly understand what the Caribbean is about? And so I thank you all for choosing Tobago to be that place for your 53rd Annual General Assembly. I thank you for coming both in person and virtually, and I look forward to what you will come up with, what you will arrive at, the solutions you will arrive at over your next couple of days here. Thank you, and a warm welcome to this island of Tobago, and by extension, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Chief Secretary, Honorable Fali Chavez Augustine. So the island of Tobago is made up of extremely talented people. So now we'll have a cultural item, Festival Time, by some of the island's top performers, Stephanie Joseph, Kirsch Ramsey, and Heartbeat performers. Ladies and gentlemen, as they make their way on stage, please welcome them with a resounding round of applause.
Island in the sun, island in the sun, island in the sun. We express we, my Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet. Festival time, we express we. Give me wings so I can fly, and I will go back to the eastern side where I'll be free. It's Jubilee, it's revelry, and it's ecstasy. So we jump in for freedom, and we waving for freedom, and we whining. Festival time, we express we. So we jump in, and we waving, and we whining. Festival time to show true liberty. My Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet. Festival time, we express we. My Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet. Festival time to show true liberty. All this time, we never know that we could enjoy the soca and calypso. Now it's time that we realize that it's freedom and freedom and freedom for soul. So we jump in, and we waving, and we whining. Carnival time is to show true liberty. So we jump in, and we waving, and we whining. Festival time to show true liberty. My Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet, my Tobago sweet. Festival time, we express we. Island in the sun, island in the sun. Festival time to show true liberty.
Ladies and gentlemen, see what I told you about Tobago being filled with talented people, and that's just a speck of what we have to offer in the cultural arena. Let's hear it again for our local performers. So this evening, we are also graced with the esteemed presence of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley. Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley was born on October 24, 1949 in Mason Hall, Tobago, and was raised by his grandparents who were prominent Tobago farmers. Dr. the Honorable Rowley completed his secondary schooling at Bishop's High School, Tobago, and his sterling academic performance saw him capture the prestigious Sylvan Bowles Scholarship. He then commenced his studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, from where he graduated with a BSc Geology First Class Honors, Geography First Class Honors, MSc in Volcanic Stratigraphy from UWI St. Augustine. He also obtained his doctorate in geology, specializing in geochemistry. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley is the member of the House of Representatives for Dago Martin West in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, where he has represented that constituency since 1991. He was elected as Prime Minister in 2015 and re-elected in 2020. Help me now, ladies and gentlemen, to invite to the podium to bring the keynote address to our audience, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley.
Thank you very much. Is there a printed version of the protocols? Could I borrow it, please? Because I hate to have not be in a position to acknowledge. Thank you. Thank you very much. Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, my colleague, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine, Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ms. Abby Taylor, my cabinet colleagues, particularly the Minister of Communication, I think is here, Minister of Communication, the Minister of Digital Transformation, Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, other members of Parliament who might be here, secretaries and assistant secretaries all, Chief Administrator, Ms. Aitlin John and other administrators, President of the Caribbean Union, Dr. Claire Grant and other members of the board of the CBU, Secretary General of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, Ms. Sonia Gill, distinguished delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It was mentioned that I went to Jamaica at some time, and I think that's a good place to start my few remarks to you today, because I remember there was an introduction or a label of a Jamaican radio station, my favorite Jamaican station, that always stayed with me. And today is an appropriate day for me to repeat it. It says, "Today the Caribbean, tomorrow the world." Is that still going on in Jamaica? It's 40-odd years ago. RJR? Today the Caribbean, tomorrow the world. That was the confidence of Caribbean people. And I'm pleased to hear that it is still sounding across the hills of Jamaica. I want to thank members of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union for your invitation to be your keynote speaker at this your 53rd General Assembly. Being Tobago born, son of this soil, I also see myself as a proud Caribbean nationalist. I'm particularly moved by your invitation that you give me for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you and exchange, hopefully, and receive some of your thoughts as well. I expect that most of you have already begun to savor some of this island's unique treasures, and hopefully, on your way back, you can spend some time in Tobago's big sister, Trinidad, which also has its own uniqueness. It is the place where the steel pan, calypso, soca music, and a number of other art forms are born and can still be found, all of which continue to evolve and which we proudly share with the rest of the world. I assure you that you will find our people in Trinidad and Tobago in particular very welcoming to you delegates and officials. Chair, your theme, media and information literacy. I approach this delicately for a number of reasons. Probably, I can summarize it by saying, in part, it is the freshness, the newness, and importance of the age. This is a time when we can chart the historical movement of our valuable commodities, from salt to sugar, to chemicals, to fuels, to data and services, the knowledge economy, and research their implications on the human communication. One commentator described our time as one of, quote unquote, new complexity, new detachment, and frighteningly new excesses. And I speculate that the same terms may have been said back in 1622, when Nathaniel Butter published in London the first edition of what was called the Weekly News, where the first edition was spelled N-E-W-E-S. Interestingly, the public response to that first newspaper was considered more of amusement, maybe bewilderment too, but it was not complimentary. There were initial skepticism and anxieties, all with the invention of the printing press, and in the later segments of human history, with the coming of the telegraph, the typewriter, the telephone, the radio, and most certainly the computer, and now the internet. In some quarters, all of these inventions met with disparagement and the naysayers. There's a account of a debate in the late 1980s at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, in which one lecturer, considered then as one of the finest minds, dismissed another panelist's descriptive potential of the coming of the internet, stating, and I quote, "If what you say is true of the internet, Google or whatever, then that will be creating God," unquote. Another significant comment was earlier in 1962, that of the president of the American Historical Association, who warned that the human existence was undergoing, and I quote, "a great mutation," unquote, adding that technological changes were so sudden and radical that we, mankind, are now suffering something like historical amnesia. He felt that such changes could lead to a decline in reading, a distancing from nature, and a loss of shared culture. He worried too about the new tools that are being made available to scholars from the goddess called quantification. And those frightening projected scanning devices, which we are told will read documents and books for us. Notwithstanding the incessant chatter, he added, and I quote, "Communication has not improved. Actually, it has become more difficult," unquote. Part of that difficulty was that insufficient work had been done on the communications revolution from medieval times to modernity, on Gutenberg's printing press and what it meant to printing, the rise of printing shops, newspapers, etc., and on what we are witnessing now in data collection and communication networks. The poet T.S. Eliot wrote that there was, I quote, knowledge of speech, but no silence, knowledge of words and ignorance of the word. All our knowledge brings us nearer to ignorance, unquote. But on the other hand, there was that a tribute at the newspaper, a chronicle of civilization, the common reservoir into which every stream pours its living waters, and at which every man may come to drink. It is the newspaper which gives liberty, its practical life, its perpetual vigilance, its unrelaxed activity. The newspaper is a daily and sleepless watchman that reports every danger which menaces the institutions of your country and its interests at home and abroad. It is a law book for the indolent, a sermon for the thoughtless, and a library for the poor, unquote. Thanks to Marshall McLuhan's monumental work, Gutenberg Galaxy, our understanding of human communication gained the momentum which is being realized with lightning speed today. Given that glowing tribute to newspapers and the understanding of the role of the media overall in the democratic process, there still have been concerns on the flip side, whether their content is acceptable or a combination of good and bad newspapers. Rather, the media have always had a love-hate political problem in every society because they are so interwoven in the fabric of our lives and do not just reflect our reality, as some claim, but help to shape it. To me, it starts with their content. Then secondly, the structure which delivers that content. The concept says that a media structure should be well-informed, vibrant, and proactive, gathering and delivering the news independently in an unbiased, logical format, regardless of commercial or political influence. Its structure is considered a historical outgrowth of democracy, hence its accolade, the fourth estate of the realm. The people who deliver the news are said to be a special breed. He and she are said to be persons whom one of Trinidad and Tobago's essayists in the 1930s, Neil Giuseppe, would have described as graduates of the University of the Streets, streetwise and knowledgeable in their orientation, their environment, and articulators of their age. At least, that is how it used to be when I was growing up. They are what sociologist S. Wright Mills described as persons with a sociological imagination. Persons who understand that the lists of human nature are frighteningly broad. In short, journalists are supposed to know the environment intimately. The scope of their profession demands a studied understanding of their people's history, cultural cycles and rhythms, language, myths, legends, and lore. In a broad sense, some of us believe that journalists are expected to locate their society and economy in the global network and its people in the march of human history. In this context, I applaud UNESCO back in 1979 for its promotion of the concept of development journalism and its publication of Many Voices, One World, in which the then Secretary General warned the media of being in the service of narrow, sectarian, metropolitan interests and being used as instruments of selected power. The Secretary General at that time suggested that the media should be, and I quote, fostering uninterrupted dialogue between communities, cultures, and individuals in a bid to promote equality of opportunities and two-way exchanges, unquote. I'm a geologist with a specialty in volcanology, but I have some 40 years or more in electoral politics and have been a close observer of you, the media. So I must make myself clear on the thorny concept of development journalism. I believe that journalists is what is loosely called the developing world should see it in their professional charge to focus, investigate, interpret, educate, and report on the development processes of their countries. They must take ownership and be guardians. And given the Caribbean's history, they must be understanding and sympathetic to the realistic challenges of the fledgling development process which we experience. Most importantly, journalists must be able to do so without any government guidance or intervention. As such, they must cultivate and view their world with the so-called jeweler's eye, interpreting, educating, and helping their fellow citizens to locate themselves and their interests in the wider world. I'm afraid that it is not the journalism I see being widely practiced. It is the journalism of publish and be damned, gotcha, or simply he said, she said that. All largely, frequently without context or recorded history. A listener, reader, or viewer is not then helped or educated in the democratic process when a journalist has a story that searches for a counterpoint. Full stop. That is it. There must be context, a wider, deeper background within and to that story which helps the receiver. Journalism today has to go beyond such limits of the current line of attempts to reach Mr. or Mrs. so-and-so for comment, but failed. Again, that is it. Story gone. I want to suggest that journalists in the Caribbean must see every story they write as report within the history and uniqueness of the Caribbean condition. What has been argued as free and independent reporting has to be seen wider than the metropolitan model or context and carrying that flavor of our West Indianness. As journalists, and journalism today must visit and keep revisiting the volumes written on the dangers of cultural imperialism and what it has done and continues to do to the minds of West Indian people, particularly its youth. I do have much more to say, Chair, on this topic, such as radio stations whose schedules are predominantly American pop or worse, American gangster, as opposed to meaningful, conscious West Indian music, art, and drama. Worse, there are sections of the radio frequencies and significant column inches dedicated to the illiterate musings of the hired hitman, spewing indignation and libel for free on a fee. It is in this context that I applaud both UNESCO and the Caribbean Broadcasting Union for promoting the discussion on media and information literacy for journalism as a relevant counter to the clear and present dangers of misinformation and disinformation. To me, this conference carries another significance, which I will share. Your handbook refers to highlights of the misinformation and disinformation from Cleopatra to Cambridge Analytica, which, according to verifiable reports in the British press, the firm Cambridge Analytica originated some 10 to 15 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago. Then, leaving its playbook behind, went on to the larger playfield in the American presidential politics. Interestingly, as I speak to you today, those wheels are still turning in Washington, in Arizona, in Georgia, in New York, and in some quarters here in Trinidad and Tobago. As media people, you must know that we dare not take incoming information at face value without the cautionary fact check. This is the era of the big lie, or just the avalanche of the common or garden lies, since shame has been reduced in its societal tempering role. We are now required to spend so much of our time and our resources debunking lies in search of the truth. So we in Trinidad and Tobago not only created the steel pan, calypso, soca music, but in part are responsible, most regrettably, for the modern-day popularization of misinformation and disinformation. Which of us in media, or who depend or interact with media and data, can ever forget Christopher Wiley and his shock of pink hair telling the British Parliament how, when, and where the era of misinformation was born? Chair, this is the era of the knowledge society and universal digitization. It is also the era of digitalization. My own government has just created its own handbook for digitalization of the public service, which makes your deliberations much more crucial to local journalists. I believe that the era now demands that journalists reframe their current model of reporting and delivering the news within the framework of media information literacy, so that readers, viewers, and listeners could trust that their product is one of quality, ethically framed, worthy of attention, and reflecting the Caribbean condition. As your handbook says, news, using the media information literacy framework that, and you quote, builds trust in the media through citizens, government, and media partnerships, as well as stimulating civic engagement, unquote. That is what we are after. Chair, I sincerely extend best wishes to you, all your members, and your deliberations, and look forward on behalf of Caribbean listeners, viewers, and readers to your rich, productive outcomes. Our freedom, I dare say, our bright future might just be depending on it. I join the Chief Secretary in welcoming you to our homeland, our island Tobago, and to the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. Enjoy your stay. Stay as long as you wish, and do come again to see us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, for your keynote address and reminding us of the important role of the media in our society. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to showcase parts of our very rich culture this evening, please help me to welcome the Tobago Performing Arts Company once more as they entertain us with a combination of ballet dances.
Nene no yo yo nene no nene no yo yo nene anene no pa mayela vwe o pati mwe anene no yo 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 nene no nene no yo yo nene no yo yo nene anene no pa mayela vwe o pati mwe anene no yo yo
Such an energetic yet elegant performance, well executed by members of the Tobago Performing Arts Company. I can see that you all agree, so that's wonderful. So at this time, I'll hand over to Mr. Vic Fernandes, past president of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, to take you through the President's Award and Hall of Fame induction segment of this evening's program. Mr. Vic Fernandes is currently chairman of the CBU's Hall of Fame selection panel. He's a Hall of Famer himself and was president of the CBU for nearly 20 years up until 2013, when he retired as CEO of the Starcom network based in Barbados. He began his broadcast career in Barbados with the state-owned Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, where he was general manager. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vic Fernandes.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols having been observed. Just one slight correction. I didn't quite ascend to the position of general manager at CBC. I made it to deputy before migrating over to the private sector. I want to say that it's a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to be on a CBU stage again, seeing so many familiar faces and some very new ones too as well, and especially our esteemed Secretary General, Dr. Sonia Gill. It is an honor and a privilege. Of Brian Lara when he made his first century at the Queen's Park Oval, the first test century, I should add. And it really is quite splendid. And Martin himself borrowed it for an exhibition in Barbados the following year. So I'm a little rusty on a CBU stage, and you know, I'm preparing for tonight's presentation. I said to my wife, Farida, who's in the audience, you know, how should I play this? And she said, well, just don't be too charming, don't be too witty, don't be too intellectual. And then almost in a throwaway, she said, just be yourself. Wasn't sure how to take that one. So ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to have two aspects to the awards. One is the President's Award, which is relatively new. In fact, it's in the second year. And I've been asked to briefly give you an outline of what the President's Award criteria is like. The award is made in recognition of an individual or institution's contribution to and or support for the work of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union as an organization and to its members. The CBU President's Award stands separate from and in addition to the CBU Hall of Fame. The award will be presented at the discretion of the board and therefore is not required to be presented every year. Nominations for the President's Award may originate with members of the Board of Directors or with the Hall of Fame panel. Eligibility: recipients of the award may be individuals of Caribbean nationality, descent, or even non-Caribbean. In the case of individuals, the award may be made posthumously if needed. Organizations operating at the community, national, regional, or international levels from the Caribbean or based outside of the region. The criteria for consideration to be given: nominees' support for core aspects of the mandate of the CBU, especially project funding or other material support, access to technical expertise, capacity building, policy formulation, advocacy on media and communication policy, the impact of the contribution, the breadth of impact of the contribution, and the duration of the contribution. And those rules were updated as recently as 24 hours ago at the CBU board meeting, I am reliably informed. And so reading tonight's citation will be my former colleague and now CCN TV Limited and Gem Radio General Manager, Mr. Richard Purcell. Mr. Purcell is also a Vice President of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. He's also a Trinidadian. We worked together in Grenada many years ago. I believe they refer to him as Purcell rather than Purcell, but he's Richard Purcell. So please welcome him to the stage, Richard Purcell.
Good evening, everybody. I'll just read the citation. Our recipient of the 2022 CBU President's Award had not originally intended to be a media professional. She pursued a degree in development studies, and while researching for a PhD in cultural ecology, Sally Ann Wilson stumbled across a new career in media. It was 1984, and she was preparing to head to Indonesia on a conservation expedition when she was invited to talk about the trip on BBC local radio. It was the beginning of a long and enthusiastic relationship with broadcasting. Returning from Indonesia a year later, she trained in BBC radio news and documentary production, moving to produce and direct documentaries for television soon after. Specializing in social documentary, environment, and natural history, she made several award-winning programs and series for the BBC, including working on the David Attenborough series, The Trials of Life. As a broadcast executive, she ran a unit for the BBC in Scotland and managed a major output deal between the independent production sector in the UK and Discovery in the US. But even as an executive, she insisted on making a film a year to keep up with the technology. In 2021, she joined what was then the Commonwealth Broadcasting Association in London to establish a new production fund. At that time, the CBA already had a 3-decade-long relationship with the CBU, having been a partner with UNESCO in the formative talks in 1969, leading up to the union's establishment in 1970. That post gave Sally Ann the opportunity to overcome her frustration of having access to amazing media technology and yet rarely seeing it being used to reflect what is happening around the world. In 2010, she was appointed as CBA's Secretary General. In that capacity, she ensured that CBU member organizations continue to benefit fully from the CBA's capacity building opportunities. Among those opportunities were annual bursaries to Caribbean media to cover the costs of attending the annual CBU assembly. The strategy targeted the smaller member organizations, contributing to the cost of airfare and accommodation. In this way, Sally Ann gave direct support to the networking and opportunity for peer learning offered by the CBU Assembly. But this is not at all surprising, since her focus internationally has always been on encouraging broadcasters to share innovative ideas and best practice. In addition, Sally Ann's leadership was effective in ensuring personnel from Caribbean media houses were able to travel outside of the region to observe and collaborate with colleagues in various aspects of media, not just broadcast journalists, but also technical professionals and even media managers. I know, because I was one of them. In 2014, she led the organization's transition to become the Public Media Alliance, expanding its ambit to build a coalition of media entities, privately or publicly owned, but always focused on serving their societies in relevant and creative ways. This focus on service again took center stage in 2017, when a few Caribbean countries were ravaged by catastrophic weather events, including Hurricanes Irma and Maria. CBU members were in the direct line of fire, and many were hit hard. In response to a request from the CBU, Sally Ann issued a call out to her members to assist Caribbean media. It resulted in PMA members, the BBC and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation providing replacement transmitters and technical support for installation for Radio Anguilla, the Dominica Broadcasting Service, and Radio Turks and Caicos. With Sally Ann's help, they got back on air and to providing the critical relief and recovery information their devastated countries needed. The following year, Sally Ann and her team agreed that the PMA Biennial Conference would take place in Kingston, Jamaica, parallel to the CBU's assembly in that city. The focus of that event on media coverage of the plight of Caribbean migrants to the UK at a time when the word Windrush was on everyone's lips was just another demonstration of Sally Ann's sincere interest in media, highlighting the basic concerns of Caribbean people. No wonder that in 2014, she was awarded the degree of Doctor of Business Administration by the University of Bedford for her outstanding services to international broadcasting. While she demitted office as PMA CEO in March 2022, she continues to believe that public interest media are where the future lies for building audience trust and beating mis- and disinformation. And so, it is my sincere pleasure for her decades-long and extensive and impactful support to the Union and its members to accord the 2022 CBU President's Award to Ms. Sally Ann Wilson.
And to present the award, we're going to ask the Chief Minister of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Farley Augustine, to join us on stage and to receive, on behalf of the awardee, the new and current CEO of the Public Media Alliance since March of this year, Christian Porter, to also join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the Chief Minister and for our honored guest. Round of applause. Thank you, Chief Minister, and thank you, Christian. And through the magic of technology and through Zoom primarily, we now bring you Sally Ann Wilson, former CEO of the Public Media Alliance, with her acceptance speech.
Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Chief Secretary, Honourable Ministers, specially invited guests, members of the Hall of Fame, President and Vice President of the CBU, Secretary General and members of the CBU, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. You've conferred on me today a very great honour, one that's moved me very deeply and for which my heartfelt thanks. She says, trying not to cry. But I really am not sure I'm worthy of this. It's been a job that I've enjoyed. It's work that I'm passionate about and I've loved every minute, so it doesn't seem right that I'm awarded for it. It's because I care about good journalism and public media. Working for and then running the Public Media Alliance has been an absolute privilege, not least because it's given me a unique opportunity to learn about the critical role that public and public interest media plays worldwide. In many parts of the world, including the Caribbean, I've been privileged to witness how important good journalism is to all of our lives. We underestimate the role that it plays at our peril. To many in power, strong, independent and accurate journalism is inconvenient, uncomfortable even. They must not deter you. At its best, it's the glue that holds our societies, our lives together. We've seen that during the pandemic, when access to accurate information saved lives. It will continue to do so. Sadly, and your President Claire Grant pointed this out earlier this evening, journalism and journalists are struggling to survive in many parts of the world today, and as a result, mis and disinformation are increasing. You don't have to look far to the north of your own region to see where distrust in the media leads. At this time, the world faces many crises, new wars, a growing population, and climate change that I know you all in the Caribbean are feeling very severely. It has to be said, we had temperatures of 41 degrees here in the UK a couple of weeks ago for a number of days. It's something we're all going to have to face together, and improving media literacy so that all citizens everywhere will better understand the media that is key to meeting those challenges. I'm sure this will be a priority in the Caribbean. My colleagues in the Caribbean, I've learned so much from you all, from Mr. Gary Allen as a guiding hand and very wise advisor on the PMA board for many years. But in many parts of the world, PMA's work is around gender equity. Women still do not have an equal role. But I quickly learned that women in the Caribbean media were not to be ignored. I've watched and learned from many who have fearlessly led media institutions: Marcia Forbes, Sheila Bolai, Odette Campbell, Dawn Thomas, Claire Grant, and of course your own Secretary General, Sonia Gill, to name just a few. Thank you all for inspiring me. As your President Claire Grant outlined earlier, there are many challenges ahead for the media in every region of the world right now. But I firmly believe that in the Caribbean, you have the resilience and determination, the strength and commitment to ensure that independent, free and strong media will continue to survive and thrive. Watching the screen tonight, I've seen so many familiar faces and memories have flooded back. It's very difficult not to be with you all, but I wish you all the very best for the CBU AGA. Please continue to be resolute and strong in your work. Tell and share your stories loud, and I hope that one day our paths may cross again. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Sally Ann, and I certainly hope you'll be able to take up the offer of the Honourable Prime Minister and the Chief Minister and avail yourself of all that Tobago has to offer now that you have ample time on your hands in retirement. That, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of the first part of tonight's award ceremony. I'd like to invite a round of applause for the board and the management of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union for the selection of the President's Award. Now we move to the second part of the proceedings. Some weeks ago at the Hilton Barbados Resort at my Rotary lunch, I was sitting at a table with one of the members of the Diplomatic Corps, a friend of mine, when in came the waiter with a lovely turkey, roasted turkey, for the carving station. He tripped and fell, and the turkey and the platter went flying. And everybody gasped, oh my gosh. My friend, the diplomat, however, quick-witted as he was, simply turned to me and he said, Vic, we've just witnessed 4 major diplomatic events: the fall of Turkey, the breakup of China, the spillage of Greece, and the frustration of Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, we move now to the Caribbean Broadcasting Hall of Fame. But first, to the selection criteria. Candidates eligible for induction into the Caribbean Media Hall of Fame shall meet the following criteria: attainment of eminence through outstanding achievements accumulated over a period of 20 years or more in at least 3 of the following categories of service to media: presentation, production, engineering, marketing, or general management at the national level. Eminence attained in more than one of these fields shall be regarded as satisfying 2 of the requisite 3 categories. Any of the aforementioned at the regional level, any of the aforementioned at the international level. Policy formulation, planning, research, writing, and other forms of expression contributing to the refinement of media thought and practice in the region. Advocacy in international and or regional fora materially advancing the cause of Caribbean media. Support to media organizations in the region, other than any officially associated with the candidate, through the sharing of resources, including professional expertise and experience. Community service, which enhances the society at large while elevating the image of the media. Service in the development and operation of the CBU and or other institutions committed to the fostering of regionalism through the media. The candidate should be of Caribbean birth or nationality, be perceived in their respective communities as persons of character and integrity, and as suitable role models for young media practitioners and youth in general. Tonight, we shall induct two eminent Caribbean media practitioners to the Media Hall of Fame. And I'd like to invite to read the first citation, Dr. Livingston White. Dr. White is the director of CARIMAC at the University of the West Indies. He's also a member of the Hall of Fame committee, and I now invite him to come to the stage to read the citation, and may you please welcome him warmly.
Thank you, Vic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Fritz Pingel, your decades of service to the media sector of your home country, Suriname, and the wider region are without question a part of the firm foundation on which much of Caribbean media still rests. Your early vision for a truly indigenous broadcast media sector led you, even while you worked at the Dutch TV broadcaster VARA in the 1950s, to use your spare time to write and submit a plan to start television in Suriname. In 1961, you submitted your plan for a national television station, but the plan was shelved for 2 years, until in 1963, under Prime Minister Yopi Pengel, interest in the proposal was renewed. At the Prime Minister's invitation, you undertook an orientation trip to Trinidad and Curacao, where television was in its infancy. Finally, in February 1964, the Surinamese Television Foundation, STVS, was established. The studio opened on October 1, 1965, and test broadcasts began the same day. Regular broadcasts began on October 20, 1965. That was the beginning of nearly 3 decades of visionary leadership. Despite the enormous challenges of setting up a television station with limited resources, you succeeded in substantially reducing costs, and your wish to be allocated a piece of land in the Kulturtuin for the station was also fulfilled. Again, you took a difficulty and turned it into an opportunity. The land was swampy, but it was next to a stadium where many sports activities were held. You didn't have a radio link back then, so the proximity of the station and the sporting facility opened up the possibility to get into the stadium with extended cables to broadcast football matches. You focused more on quality in a range of local programming, including comedy, nightly news, and content for children. You were in the vanguard of indigenous content, with 25% of Surinamese airtime filled with homegrown productions. And even more noteworthy was that everything was live, because recording was expensive. STVS, under your leadership, was very supportive of other broadcast services in the region. When the government of the Bahamas decided to expand the existing ZNS radio service into a national television broadcaster, you sent STVS's chief engineer to assist. You also stood with other broadcasters in Suriname, Aruba, and Curacao in the face of arbitrary and predatory pricing of programs being sold to those stations. The experience in joint negotiation for programming was brought into the CBU and benefited the entire region. At the time you first took over as president of the CBU in 1976, the organization was in transition. When you were elected at the annual General Assembly in Curacao, you brought a steady hand to the leadership of the union. Your seminal contribution also included establishing the communication infrastructure, which allowed the CBU to truly connect the Caribbean. With the engineering team from STVS, you inaugurated the first satellite uplink-downlink facility for broadcast services in the Caribbean in 1979. You are particularly recognized for showing great fearlessness and fighting for the independence of the editorial content of the station. On the night of May 10 to 11, 1993, a handful of armed and masked men broke into the studio, assaulted the staff, and doused them with diesel fuel. The attack occurred a few hours after STVS broadcast live the debate in Parliament, in which it was decided to replace the Army commander. The television station caught fire and burned to the ground. Despite the tragic events, you fought on, undaunted, and rebuilt the institution, which remains a proud member of the Union. For your service as founder and former director of the National Television Channel of Suriname, STVS, and achievements during your time as President of the Union, Fritz Spengel, you are invited to accept your rightful place in the Caribbean Broadcasting Hall of Fame.
We now present a recorded segment of the presentation which took place in Paramaribo, Suriname, with the CEO of Dime Network, Ms. Daniela Tonar.
Mr. Pengel, on behalf of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, today it is my honor to present to you the Caribbean Broadcasting Hall of Fame Award for your outstanding contribution to the regional broadcasting sector. Congratulations.
Thank you very, very, very much.
This will now be followed by another recorded segment with our newest inductee, former General Manager of STVS Suriname and former President of the CBU, Mr. Fritz Spengel.
Due to my health condition, I was advised by my doctor not to attend the meeting in Tobago on the 15th of August. My apologies for not being able to attend the ceremonies for the Hall of Fame inauguration. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to say thank you to the selection panel for my recommendation and to say thank you to the Board of Directors of CBU for my nomination. It was with pleasure, honor, and pride that I have accepted this nomination. The CBU is a very important organization in the Caribbean. Not only is she responsible to increase the level of broadcasting in the region, but she's also responsible to bring the Caribbean community closer together. I wish her success with this very important task, and I do hope that the CBU may become the organization of many voices, one Caribbean, but a very, very strong Caribbean. Thank you.
And thank you to Dr. Livingston White, and congratulations to my friend and one of my mentors in the CBU, Mr. Fritz Spengel. You have now, Fritz, taken your rightful place as a trailblazer in Caribbean media. Our second inductee is no less eminently qualified to join the ranks of the Hall of Fame. I now invite the Group CEO of the largest and most successful pan-Caribbean media organization, Mrs. Dawn Thomas, to join me on stage to present the citation to our second inductee.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols acknowledged and observed. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for me tonight to do the citation for Mr. Gary Allen, my media colleague and media friend. Mr. Gary Allen, who is with us tonight, you are known across the region for your nearly 4 decades of exploits in journalism and media management, spanning print, broadcast, and digital communications. You grounded your career as a freelance correspondent for your home parish of St. Mary's for the Gleaner newspaper in the mid-1980s, after showing a precocious interest in news as a writer for the St. Mary High School newsletter. Identifying this budding talent, the principal introduced you to stalwart of print journalism, Franklin McKnight, who recruited you as a rural correspondent for the Gleaner. Showing the initiative that has been one of the hallmarks of your career, when you noted a possible newsworthy protest in the parish capital, you called in the story to the Radio Jamaica newsroom. The news team quickly brought you on board in 1987, where you moved from reporter to assistant news editor. Even in your early media career, you showed a strong interest in the wider Caribbean, becoming a correspondent for the Caribbean News Agency in 1989, and then a Caribbean correspondent for the British Broadcasting Corporation in 1991. In 1993, your capacity was recognized by the local competition, and you were hired by CVM Television to become the youngest manager of news, sports, and current affairs in Jamaica media at the time. For this relatively early career media professional, whose only broadcast experience had been in radio, leading a television newsroom was a brand new experience. Undaunted, you immersed yourself into learning all you could about TV newsrooms, management, and opportunities. The next step in your career required another major move, this time of country of residence. Your association with the CBU began in 1996, when you moved to Barbados to become Program Operations Manager. You were given responsibility for radio and television programming, news, sports, current affairs, and technical services. In 2000, with the Caribbean News Agency coming to the end of its full-scale operations, the CBU seconded you to the newly created Caribbean Media Corporation. There, you were given the responsibility to merge the print and radio services of CANA with the television services of the CBU, while still leading negotiations for special events, programming for radio and television. In late 2003, with substantial experience in accounting, financial, programming, and project contracts, you returned to Kingston to take up the role of Director of Operations with the RJR Communications Group. With careful tending, the group's offerings blossomed to 3 subscription channels, 3 free-to-air radio channels, and broadcast TV, and multimedia departments, by the time you took over from the late Lester Spalding as Group Managing Director in 2008. Even as you headed the largest broadcast media house in Jamaica, the period was marked by your continued service to the CBU. You were elected to the Board of Directors and served as Vice President from 2006 to 2017, when the President, Shida Bolai, retired in early 2017. You stepped in as President until election at the 48th Annual General Assembly that year. During your time as President, the CBU expanded its ambit, amending its bylaws to include print and digital media members and the renamed Caribbean Media Awards. Under your leadership, the CBU also developed new partnerships with commercial media providers and sectoral organizations such as Digital Radio Mondial and the Public Media Alliance. In fact, the Annual General Assembly in Kingston 2018 was held jointly with the PMA's conference, where you were Vice President from 2015 to 2021. You brought a steady hand to the Union during one of the most testing times for the membership, the economic downturn during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021. Despite the significant challenges, the CBU was still able to conduct assemblies in both years, albeit virtually. You demitted office in August 2021 after back-to-back 2-year terms. Under the term limits, you strongly championed for enactment in the CBU bylaws. The recognition of Order of Distinction, Commander Class, conferred on you in the 2017 Jamaican National Honors and Awards for service to the national media sector reflects your service to the Caribbean. And so you invited Gary Allen, my media colleague, my friend, to accept the place you so richly deserve in the CBU Caribbean Broadcasting Hall of Fame. Congratulations, my friend. Congratulations.
And I now invite the Honourable and Distinguished Prime Minister of the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, to present the award to our newest inductee. And I will also invite the inductee, Gary Allen, to join us on stage and to take his rightful place in the Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the Honourable Prime Minister and for our latest inductee. Thank you, Prime Minister. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite the newest member of the Hall of Fame, my longtime colleague and friend Gary Allen, to take his rightful place in the Hall of Fame and to address you as a Hall of Famer. Gary Allen.
Master of Ceremonies, Master of Ceremonies 2 for the induction section of the program, Prime Minister, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, other members of the Political Directorate, CBU President Claire, who is not here with us today, CBU Secretary General, immediate past President of the CBU, K. Lisa, and if you will permit me just to round off by saying all other distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the audience. This awesome experience of generosity, hospitality, and cultural richness that has been displayed since my arrival here a few hours ago, it has tempted me to think of saying how pleased I am to be in the Republic of Tobago and Trinidad. But since my passage back to the part of the Caribbean community in which I live takes me from here to Trinidad, I have kept that only as a thought in my head. And I am pleased to say how wonderful it is to be in the land of the steel pan. After all, the steel pan is an instrument I love so much. It was a steel pan on which the wedding march was played for my wife and I when we got married in Barbados 22 years ago. Today, you have done me an enormous service and an unimaginable honor in inviting me to be among the ranks of those in the Caribbean Media Hall of Fame. I acknowledge the grace of Almighty God who has blessed my life and blessed my career. I thank my family, especially my wife, Eulalie, and my sons, Jared and Jordan. Eulalie and Jordan are here with us today. Eulalie, Jared, and Jordan have been around the CBU for so long. In fact, I think, Eulalie, we were around the CBU when you were pregnant with the first one. And I think everyone recalls them growing up They are no longer growing up. One is an adult away studying. The other is here constantly pointing out that he is now taller than I am. They have allowed me, my family members have allowed me to immerse myself in media, to travel and to be involved in projects and media affairs all over the world for over 3 decades. I thank you, Madam Immediate Past President Kaylisa, under whose leadership making this award to me was conceived. I thank you for your pleasant and your dignified approach and contribution to the industry. Thanks, President Claire, Vice President Richard, the board of the CBU, the independent panel of Hall of Fame selectors, led by CBU's longest-serving president and the man who signed my contract and employed me to the Caribbean Broadcasting Union in 1996, Vic Fernandes. I appreciate the media fortitude of the lady in the industry whom I always call my maximum leader, former President Shida Balai, who is also on the Hall of Fame panel, and to Director of CBU member, the Caribbean School of Media and Communications, CARMAC, Dr. Livingston White, who is committed to excellence in media training, but whom, though we live in the same country, I seem only to see once a year in August at CBU meetings. I am grateful to the Gleaner Company, to Radio Jamaica Limited, to CVM Television, the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, the Caribbean News Agency, and the Caribbean Media Corporation that have all played a role in my development through their employment of me in various roles in their organizations. Finally, I venture to single out a few of the many people who have played a tremendous role in my professional career. I commence with my friend, my former boss, former chairman and mentor for more than 20 years, Hall of Famer J.A. Lester Spalding. I'm grateful for the contribution that he has made to my development and to my growth. Also grateful to for the contribution made by another Hall of Famer, Rafi Khan, who was consultant at the time when I joined the CBU, and yet another Hall of Famer, Hugh Chumley, who worked with a number of us on the establishment of the Caribbean Media Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, when I looked at the list of persons inducted into the Caribbean Media Hall of Fame, I had a little bit of trepidation. But I felt somewhat comforted by the fact that I counted 11 of them that I have worked with directly in one role or another while I have been on this journey. Finally, I accept this great honor on behalf of my many, many media colleagues who have helped me to achieve what successes we celebrate today, because it's not something that is built in media on one person. It's always a team. I remember a few of them by name, largely because they have gone on ahead of us in life. Hugh Crosskill, Michael Sharp, both of Jamaica, Phil Smith and Colin Trotman of the Bahamas, Cartwright Grant of Antigua, and Curtis Wilson and Curtis St. Hill, both of Trinidad and Tobago. This honor is an indication of the contributions that they have helped me to make. I salute my colleagues who are in pursuit of excellence in media, today in the Caribbean, tomorrow across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
What a privilege it is to welcome Gary Allen to the Broadcasting Hall of Fame, the Media Hall of Fame. Please, a round of applause for him. as Gary said, you know, we go back a long time. In fact, we lived in the same house, not at the same time, I might add, just so you know. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the end of my part of the proceedings. I must say that I hope to be back in Tobago, because I understand the Great Race, Rogers, next week. Tobago Great Race, yeah. So I'm looking to my Tobagonian friends to just give me some advice as to what may be a safe vessel for me to view the proceedings from. I thank you, and I now hand over to Davia Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Finance. So a new initiative of the President, Dr. Claire Grant, is that of a pinning ceremony, which will now take place. So we have a number of pins which will be distributed to executives this evening. The first person to be pinned is the Vice President, Mr. Richard Purcell, and I now invite Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, our Prime Minister, to present Mr. Purcell with his pin. We're also asking the Honorable Prime Minister to please remain on stage to pin the Secretary General thereafter, Ms. Sonia Gill. Thank you, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, I invite Mr. Richard Purcell to pin the directors of the board who are present with us, as well as the members thereafter and the past presidents. So I ask the directors who are present to make their way on stage: Emiliana Bernard Stevenson, Keith Campbell, and Anthony Green. I now invite our members who are present to be pinned: Antigua and Barbuda Broadcasting Services, Ms. Erna May A. Brathwaite; Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation's Ms. Jewel Ford; UWI-TV, Miss Janet Carew. Great Belize Productions Limited, Miss Marlene Quayla. National Communications Network, Inc., Mr. Niaz Suban. Caribbean School of Media and Communication, Dr. Livingston White. I now call on Miss Daniela G. Towner. Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Miss Colleen Holder. Miss Suzette J. Batiste. And lastly, in this category, Mr. David Roberts of TTT Limited. I now invite Mr. Vic Finance, Mrs. Sheeta Bulai, Mrs. Kaylisa DeVoe Isaacs, and Mr. Gary Allen. Thank you very much, Mr. Purcell. So now as we wind down, we'll have the photo opportunity with our CBU member CEOs and the awardees. This process will be guided by the official photographer, so you can make your way to the stage. We're also inviting at this time the Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, and the Chief Secretary, Honorable Fali Augustine, to be a part of the group photograph. We're also inviting all of the members who were pinned to be a part of the group photograph as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for the historic present and future of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. At this time, I invite the chair of the 53rd AGA Local Organizing Committee, Mr. Richard Purcell, to bring the vote of thanks.
Good evening once again. I know we're running very late, so I will speed through. Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Farley Augustine, Minister of Digital Transformation, Honorable Hassel Bacchus, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Simon De Noriega, Senator the Honorable Lawrence Hislop, Presiding Officer, Tobago House of Assembly, Ms. Abby Taylor, Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries, Chief Administrator, Ms. Ethelyn John and other administrators, Directors of the CBU, Secretary General of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, Ms. Sonia Gill, delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the close of tonight's event, on behalf of the CBU, it gives me immense pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks. I extend a heartfelt thank you to our Chief Secretary, the Honorable Farley Augustine, and his team for hosting us here, and indeed for the entire conference. We were well received. It has been a fantastic experience thus far. I also thank the Honorable Prime Minister for attending. It is indeed our honor. I'm very happy to extend thanks to our partner, the Tobago House of Assembly, and without the THA, this would not be possible. Yes. And our main sponsor, the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited for organizing today's island tour. We are also thankful to the Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, Tashia Boris, and her team. To our esteemed stakeholders, the Public Media Alliance, Utelsat, UNESCO, Caribbean Airlines, the CARICOM Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett, who is going to address us tomorrow, the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, TAT, who has sponsored the awards tomorrow, the Shore Park Complex, where it's going to be held, and the Magdanilla Grand Beach and Gulf Resort. We say thank you. Our greatest appreciation to all the performers tonight. I mean, it was truly fantastic. I haven't, it's been a long time since I've seen that quality of performances. So I thank them. And thank you to the CBU. Thank you, CBU members, for coming. Some of you have traveled long distances. This is our first in-person conference in 2 years, and we have quite a large delegation. So I thank you all for coming. Cocktails at the Silaka Grill afterwards, so don't just go home. And of course, you are all invited to attend the conference tomorrow, right here in the ballroom. Thank you, and good night.
So that brings us to the end of this opening ceremony of the 53rd Annual General Assembly of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, of course brought to you in part by the Tobago House of Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, as you already know, you're now invited to refreshments. Thank you once more. Do enjoy the remaining 2 days of the Annual General Assembly and, of course, all we have to offer in beautiful Tobago.